you both, Kiva and Dr. Muldoon, for your statements here this morning. Look, there's no doubt these children are very wanted children. That is absolutely. We've seen that over the last number of weeks by testimonies of surrogate parents that have come in here, by parents that have come in here. But clearly this morning there's a Pandora's box of psychological issues surrounding surrogacy. So I have a couple of questions. My first question is to Kiva. As someone who works in the area of child psychology, particularly in families where the parents are undergoing a divorce, you've obviously seen cases where children feel some form of responsibility or guilt for the separation of their parents. And that can tie into feelings of abandonment, which can be very damaging to a child's sense of self and their strong core identity. Could your comments on the possible psychological effects of a child's finding out that they are conceived through surrogacy and then having to wait until attaining the age of, I think it's 16 or 17, to request identifying information, which possibly they may never receive, be applicable? So that's the first question. The second question is to Dr. Muldoon. I just want to put on record comments by another Commissioner of Children's Rights in Ukraine, where commercial surrogacy is common and indeed a growing business. Ukrainian President, Commissioner for the Children's Rights, Mykola Kuleba, has said that surrogacy in Ukraine is unregulated and violates the children's rights. According to him, surrogacy is the exploitation of women in order to earn income by private businesses and meet the needs of adults. However, it violates children's rights. He says, I'm categorically against commercial surrogacy. It is the objectification of the child and its positioning as a commodity. What is your view on his comments, and how do you feel surrogacy protects the best interests of the child, protecting their rights to identity, access to origins that leaves these children in statelessness for years because adults have really focused on their rights rather than the rights of the child? The second question, Dr. Muldoon, is your role as Ombudsman involves the investigation of complaints from services provided to children by public organisations. On Tuesday, Roderick O'Gorman apologised on behalf of the government to all those who had been hurt by the legacy of illegal birth registrations in this country. Is it possible that the complex nature of international surrogacies, particularly the manners in which the rights of the children, surrogates, donors and prospective legal parents can come into conflict, may lead to a future apology being necessary to persons who are hurt by this system? So thank you both.
Thanks very much, Senator Keogan. So our witnesses have just under 4 minutes to reply. Will we go to our psychologist first?
Yes, please.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much, Ms.
Thank you. With respect to, I think this bill is about the rights of children, but we also need to be inclusive of the surrogate mothers. My understanding and reading of the research is that the surrogate mothers do not have an intention of having a child and rearing a child, and that parenting is about, or becoming a parent is about the intention to become a parent. So they are reporting, the surrogates are reporting a non-attachment really to the child. I would be in favour of legislation and disclosure to children that holds the view that I mentioned, held by Mally Mann, who has done a lot of research in the area. And that view is that the surrogate mother should not be promoted in the child's eyes to a status that is anyway on a par to the social mother or the functioning mother. And I think that's really important in the disclosure, that it is another person who has assisted in their coming into the world, but maintaining the absolute significance of the parents, the functioning parents. About the age of telling children, or about access to their records, I'm not sure about it. I would need more time to think about that. I would have thought 18, but I'm hearing this morning that there's some discussions about 16 and 17. What I would say from a background in child psychology and in particular adolescent psychology, there is a peak of adolescence where issues of identity are at a crisis, and the individuation stage of adolescence is what we refer to it as. So all the crises, say the anorexia, the bulimia, the self-harming, they're all much more likely in what we call this middle phase of adolescence between 14 and 16. So I think it's really important to consider developmental stages of adolescence and look to the age that somebody can seek out their records as moving beyond that peak of adolescence. So I'm not too sure the 16 will do that. That would be my concern about that. That it can be used as a weapon against the biological or functioning parents. Yeah, maybe Niall, you want to take up the other issues there?
Thank you very much. We have just under a minute, but I'm happy to give you an extra minute there because it's very tight for time.
Okay,
if you'd like to answer Senator Horgan's questions. Just also to mention, with regards to yesterday's apology, that's not relevant to today's committee, so there's no obligation to respond to that.
Okay. Okay. In relation to the Ukraine Commissioner for Children, you know, I've read the feedback he's given, or that's been given by the Commissioner. From our point of view, I mean, we agree that we're against commercial surrogacy. We're very clear on that regard, because the best interest of the child needs to be protected from the possible exploitation of anybody, child or mother. So we're in agreement with that. We also believe that we need to protect the rights of the child by legislating, by creating opportunities now. This is what you are here for. This is what this is about, is to create an opportunity so that there is no future need to apologise to anybody. But I think there is a huge amount of work being done in regards to international rights standards, and I might just ask my colleague, Sarah, just to go into that a little bit further. Yeah,
just to add to what the Ombudsman for Children has said, you know, domestically, we're in favour of, you know, upholding a prohibition of commercial surrogacy in view of preventing the risk of the sale of children. But we cannot obviously regulate what happens in another jurisdiction as regards whether they prohibit commercial surrogacy or not. But what we can regulate here in Ireland is to ensure that once a child is brought home by their parents to Ireland, that their best interests is the paramount consideration in determining what happens to that child. This is not only to provide clarity for those children and their families, it's also mandated, in our view, by the Child Rights Convention and, more importantly, by the European Convention on Human Rights, which has provided that